Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Core of Everything Christmas special, where today we'll be looking at how two seemingly separate topics of geology and Christmas actually intermix. It's more than just Jingle Bell Rock. Mark's already been on ChatGPT.
I think Jingle Bell Rock probably tops anything that I've found. We've got one for the limestone lovers here. It's the most wonderful lime of the year.
Niche audience, I'd say.
Indeed.
Today we're going to be covering the story of the wise men, their journey from their origin to where Jesus lay, guided by a star or possibly an astronomical event. And we'll also be talking about gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We've taken our stories basically from either National Geographic or the King James version of the Bible / other versions of the Bible.
Those are the two pillars of literature that I live my life by.
Yeah, it's true actually, isn't it? Yeah. So let's get started just in the Saint Nick of time. Okay, so we just kick things off where King Herod was king and Jesus had just been born. So this is taken from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. There came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him." So the star appears to wise men, or three wise men.
Well, interestingly, the Bible never actually talks about there being three of them, but it's kind of been translated in tradition that there are three because there were three gifts, which we'll hear about later.
So it's actually more like, could be 10, and actually they're really stingy, or that they drew straws to see who'd get it. I don't want to get the gift. Yeah. £10 limit.
Yeah, Secret Santa.
Exactly.
You got Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean, in other translations or other interpretations, there are the names of three wise men as well. So there's Gaspar from India, or Caspar, Melchior from Persia, and Balthasar from Arabia. And whether you're an atheist or an agnostic or a theist, you may disagree if the story is true or not, or metaphorical. But the question is if the New Testament is actually at least partially on account of an astronomical event that might have happened. So the question is, what is the Star of Bethlehem, and how were they guided?
Yeah, and there are numerous astronomical events that happen even today that we can kind of look up, and there's so much going on in our night sky which shows how dynamic our Earth is, as well as our solar system and kind of everything that's going on. So one of the astronomical events that's really interesting is Halley's Comet, which was positioned in the sky in 11 BC, so around that time. Now, Halley's Comet is a short-period comet. We didn't know this to begin with. It was recorded that this comet kind of came appearing in the sky at a sort of regular interval of about 75 to 79 years. And it wasn't until the mid-1700s where Halley himself worked out that actually these occurrences were the same comet that kept coming back. This was a short-period comet. It comes round regularly. The next time it will come is in 2061. So watch out for it then. Interestingly, maybe this is obvious, but when you see a comet in the sky, it's not like a shooting star. It doesn't just appear briefly and disappear. It like hangs there in the sky because it's so far away. It's moving really, really fast, but it's very far away. And you can just see it with its tail, its coma, which is kind of this material being blown off by the sun. And actually, comets are sometimes known as dirty snowballs because they're made up of various like volatile ices, so things like ammonia and methane, as well as dust. And this theory was confirmed in 1986 when Halley's Comet came back around, and we were able to make observations. These were ground-based, so using telescopes on the ground, various optical telescopes, as well as something known as Halley's Armada, which I quite like, which is basically where this comet was coming, and then like everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, we need to send a spacecraft there to go and check this thing out," because it doesn't happen very often. So the Soviets sent a couple of probes, the Japanese sent a probe, ESA sent the Giotto probe as well to do like a flyby and go and kind of take some images, kind of see what's going on with Halley's Comet, look at what it's made up of. So that's Halley's Comet. It comes around regularly. But I think
obviously the position of it moves slightly, particularly as the Earth rotates as well. The position of it moves in the sky. So the wise men, or wise man, or however they are, I guess they'd be running around in circles if they were to follow this comet, or would it be fixed in that position? You know,
so when these comets appear, they do move in the sky because we don't see them forever. But like if you saw it between two nights, it would pretty much be in exactly the same position.
Okay, so that's Halley's Comet. But we doubt it's going to be Halley's Comet because it's also not really a star. It's more of a trail of ice and dust.
Yeah, when I saw Comet Neowise a few years ago, it looked like a little kind of smudge in the sky.
Right. Okay. Oh, so it could be then. Yeah. But whether they'd noticed a smudge, I'm not sure.
I think these kind of early astronomers were actually quite advanced, the science that they were doing. And, you know, it was typically mixed in with a lot of their culture and things like this. But, yeah.
So that was one option. It could also be a supernova or supernovae. They have no detectable remnants. Stars rise and set as well. So they'd only be able to progress by night.
Because you can't see stars in the day.
Because you can't see stars in the day. There is a supernova from the Andromeda Galaxy in a paper published in 2005 in the observatory. This galaxy can actually be seen with the naked eye, but it's not possible to see the star within the galaxy at that time, particularly because Galileo didn't even invented the telescope. He said he developed one in 1609. So at that time, they wouldn't have telescopes advanced enough anyway to see a star within a galaxy. So that's probably been ruled out as well.
But similar to this is Betelgeuse. I don't know if you've heard about Betelgeuse recently, so this is... If you know the Orion constellation, you've got Orion's belt, these kind of 3 stars across his belt. And then if you look up on, I guess, his right shoulder, kind of the top left star of his body, you've got this star called Betelgeuse.
This is Orion's body.
Orion's body, sorry, yeah. This star, it kind of glows very sort of reddy orange. Now, old stars glow red. New stars glow like bright white and blue because they're very hot. Scientists thought it was going to go supernova and come to the end of its lifetime and basically explode because it was dimming and it was this very red colour. But actually, it started to brighten again. So we're not too worried. We're not quite going to lose it yet.
How is it going to? It's a bit off topic, but how would it brighten again? How would it go from dying to being revived?
Well, I guess these are all to do with star dynamics, like internal dynamics. So, you know, our sun, we have like solar flares and various hotspots on the sun where there's just lots of different internal processes going on. It's burning through this fuel. And so, I don't know, maybe something internal inside Betelgeuse shifted that meant it got a new lease of life or found some new fuel. Or maybe there was another process, maybe a load of dust passing in front of it that just meant it dimmed.
Yeah, exactly. A cloud's just flown in front of it. Okay, so that's another option. And the last one, which is probably the most compelling, is a conjunction.
Yeah, so planetary conjunctions are basically when you get 2 objects meeting in the sky. And these happen fairly regularly. So maybe the next one of particular interest will be when Venus and Mars come very close to each other in February of 2024. These are... Because all our planets are moving across the sky, sometimes we get 2 or more. So earlier this year, I think we had maybe a kind of lineup of 4 planets, perhaps. All the ones that we can see visibly in the sky. And astronomer Michael Molnar, in his book The Star of Bethlehem, actually suggested a few different alignments.
Yeah, exactly. So one of them being that Jupiter, Saturn, and the Moon and the Sun actually aligned on April 17th, 6 BC.
Okay.
In the constellation of Aries. And that happened in the early hours of the morning. I mean, it seems remarkable that they were able to time this so well.
Yeah. That's, I guess, thanks to computer simulations, just winding back the clock.
Yeah, so this aligns with the Gospel's description of being a morning star, or is it specified as being a morning star? So that aligns quite nicely. There's another point as well that the 3 wise men, or the wise men, otherwise known as the
Magi.
The Magi. I can't say Maggie. The Magi. In some interpretations of the Bible, they lost sight of the star before seeing it to come to rest where Jesus lay, and this could be due to the retrograde motion of Jupiter within this conjunction.
Now, can you explain what retrograde motion is? Because I find this hard to get my head around.
Okay, so normally stars, as they move across the night sky, they go from east to west. Whereas retrograde motion is this idea where some stars might, or some planets might turn and go the other way, so they might set in the west. And the reason behind that is because if you imagine in an orbital process, the Earth is on the inside lane of a track. And so it's actually taking a faster route around the sun. So as we pass Jupiter, it's not that Jupiter turns in direction, it's that we pass Jupiter at a fast rate, which means that it looks like Jupiter turns direction, but actually it just goes backwards.
Okay, so it's an apparent effect, isn't it? It's not that any planets are turning around and going the other way. It's that they appear to change direction relative to our movement.
Yeah, we sort of undertake it. So that's the general idea of a conjunction, and that seems to be quite a compelling argument. And in fact, 1603, there's a Johannes Kepler, a German astronomer, showed there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in year 7 BC. And this happened 3 times, on the 27th of May, 6th of October, and 1st of December. So this conjunction might explain how the wise men, they got to Herod, and then how they might have lost sight of it. So it's one of our best explanations for a possible astronomical event that coincides with the Star of Bethlehem.
And an interesting thing about Kepler, so he was a famous astronomer, and actually there's a NASA telescope named after him, so the Kepler Space Telescope, which was launched in 2009, and it was sent to find Earth-sized planets orbiting other stars. So we would call these exoplanets, and we were looking for particularly exoplanets that looked very similar to the Earth. So the same kind of size, which is a big, important parameter to control whatever the environmental conditions are on the surface and the atmosphere, things like this. And we're also looking for them in a habitable zone. So this is where water can exist as a liquid. Now, it's a big jump to then saying whether there's life here, but that's what Kepler and a number of other telescopes are doing. So we've got Gaia that's coming up soon that's meant to find thousands more exoplanets on top of the 5,000 that we have so far.
I guess it must analyse magnetic fields as well, possibly. Does it do that? Because that's quite a big constraint on
habitability. Can you do that from far away?
I think so.
Perhaps if you can get some parameters on the properties of the parent star, then you might be able to work out the magnetic field that it's exerting. And then maybe if you know the mass or the radius or the kind of orbital period, so how long it takes for this planet to go around that parent star, you might be able to infer some of these properties. But it's the real challenge of exoplanet science. We can't go there. We're not close enough. It'd be great to send a probe there, but they're many thousands of light years away, maybe millions.
So back to Herod. So they left Herod, not before Herod asked them to tell him where Jesus was, but obviously didn't tell them that he might wanted to kill Jesus because there might be a rival.
Yeah, because he was kind of said to be the king of the Jews, and Herod didn't really want another king around on the block.
So they might have also lost sight of the star briefly before seeing it again. And this is taken from, again, Matthew. When they heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star, or possibly conjunction, which... So, let me do that again. So when they had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star, which they saw in the east, went before them, till it came and stood over where the child was.
So they presented him with gifts, and these gifts had meaning. So gold signified kingly status, so the fact that Jesus was coming as a king. The frankincense, it's just incense really. So that's signifying Christ's divinity. So the fact that he is God, he's the Son of God. And then finally the myrrh is representing Jesus' mortality, so that God has come to earth as a man. And frankincense and myrrh come from resins from trees found in areas like southern Arabia, and there's some interesting kind of we can work out how much these things cost. So today a pound of frankincense and myrrh is about $15. Gold is $24,000 for a pound. At the time, a pound of frankincense was $500. A pound of myrrh was $4,000. By today's prices, and gold was $600. So these things are sacred, kind of only really growing in the Arabian Peninsula, so very low supply but a high demand. And typically they would burn incense in spiritual ceremonies.
And it'd smell quite lovely. It'd be quite, from today's standards, the wise men that had frankincense and myrrh have obviously got lucky there. And the guy's like, why do I have to have gold? But obviously, yeah, I guess at the time it was sacred and very expensive.
And still is.
and still is, well, gold. And
Still sacred, less expensive. But, we can tie this into geology, because that's what we're here to do. What is the geology of gold? How does this all fit in?
Well, we're trying to distinguish where the wise men got their gold, and there's quite a few deposits of gold in the Arabian Peninsula, in areas like Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia's got the most gold reserves in the area, and then Lebanon's also quite high, it's the second highest. And one of the most common gold type reserves are called epithermal gold reserves, or epithermal gold deposits rather. And epithermal, basically in Greek, means sort of nearby heat. And these are deposits that form quite close to the surface. There's also something called Carlin gold deposits, but epithermal deposits are among the richest gold deposits in the world. And they form via hydrothermal fluids. So magma starts to rise through the crust, and a few kilometres below the surface, they sort of start giving off these super hot magmatic fluids associated with the magma. And these hot fluids, as they rise to the surface through faults and fractures and porous rocks, they react with the surrounding rock, so sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic rock, and they pick up sort of minerals and elements and these sort of different constituents. And water from the surface may trickle down and start interacting with the magmatic fluids. And as magnetic fluids rise, the pressure drops. And as the pressure drops, it causes the fluid to boil, and gold is precipitated out. And these form these sort of large veins of gold within the surface or close to the surface.
Which must be an amazing thing to discover, right? Just find this kind of...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I want, obviously sometimes, because they're close to the surface, a lot of times the, ice or water that's on the surface start eroding or weathering the deposit and start trickling downstream. And so obviously you can then start using streams because they leave traces of the gold and other elements that are indicative of gold deposits. And they start, so you can track where the gold comes from.
And that's why you can go panning for gold.
Yeah, moving upstream. But obviously as the fluid's rising, gold precipitates out, but not everything precipitates out. So the fluid continues to rise, and as it hits the surface, other minerals might precipitate out. And you got indications that a gold deposit might be near by something like geysers from the surface, but also from deposits of, say, mercury-bearing minerals that precipitate on the surface. And if you've got this enrichment of mercury, you might see gold below that.
And this gets back to like our very first episode when we were talking about mineralogy, right? And where in some minerals, elements can like substitute in for other minerals. So you might have like aluminium or calcium typically in your mineral, but some of these rarer elements can substitute into that kind of crystal lattice of the mineral if they're about the same sort of size, and that's where they can be stored, for example.
So the wise men, where would they get the gold from? Well, in the Arabian Peninsula, there's this nearby deposit called the I'm going to have to really pronounce this. The Mad Ad Dalab deposit in the Arabian Peninsula. I'm so sorry if that pronunciation is completely off. And these mines, they were first mined 3000 BC. So it's been around for a long time. And actually it's due to close this year.
Really?
Sadly. So it's
That's
been around
crazy.
for so long.
5,000 years of heritage.
I know, and it's gone. But because they've mined so intensely that the only thing left is low-grade gold. So it's not cost-effective to mine it anymore.
Which is the same question we ask about like mining asteroids, for example. Is it cost-effective? It's fun. It's cool. But do we get a return?
Probably not. So it depends on the value of the thing you're mining. And so they had their gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and they presented them onto Jesus. And that brings us to our sort of last quote taken from Matthew. And when they come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, possibly of epithermal nature, and resins of frankincense and myrrh, which smelt really nice. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed unto their own country another way, and they were never heard of again.
So if you're looking for ideas for your Christmas list this year, then we have given you 3 suggestions, perhaps.
Take a trip to the Mad Ad Dalab mine.
And pick up your gold.
To bring up some low-grade gold. But not before picking up some frankincense and myrrh.
In duty-free.
Yeah, exactly. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas from me too.
Bye.